So in today's video, we will be talking about the dispatching actions with mapDispatchToProps. We have used this function a lot of times in our a lot of previous videos and tutorials, but today we will be talking about this in detail. So we have been using connect function a lot of times, and we have given some of the arguments inside that. So let us just open one of our previous examples. So you can see we have a connect function and it has two arguments, map state to prop and map dispatch props. So as the second argument passed into connect, map dispatch to props is used for dispatching actions to the store. Dispatch is a function of the Redux store. We call store.dispatch to dispatch an action. And we already know that this is the only way to trigger a state change. With React Redux, our component never accesses the store directly. The connect function does it for us. React Redux gives us two ways to let components dispatch actions. The first one is by default, that is, a connected component receives props dot dispatch and can dispatch action itself. And the second method is using connect. Connect can accept an argument called mapDispatchToProps. This function lets us create functions that dispatch when called and pass those functions as props to our component. The mapDispatchToProps function are normally referred to as mapDispatch for short, but the actual variable name can be used whatever we want. For example, here I have used mapDispatchProps. You can change it according to yourself. So what is the approach for dispatching? So let us just have a small example here. So my component is named thunk example. So if I want to give an argument inside, so if we do not specify the second argument to connect, then the component will receive dispatch by default. So if I remove this and if I control S, and now we will add this component into our app.js instead of counter, or let it be counter, and we are also going to add thunk example. And we will start our server. So we haven't given any arguments inside our connect function, that is both the components are empty. We are not giving the connect any arguments, so it will receive dispatch by default. This statement is equivalent to the below statement. So in place of this, I can also write connect, and with connect, I will write null as the first and null as the second argument, and then the name of my component. So let us just say my component. Whatever is the name of your component, we will add that. We are seeing that. So here my component is not defined. This is just a demo. So this statement and this statement both are equivalent. Or you can also give a third statement. Here we will give the first argument. So the first argument will be same, map state to props. But we will not give the second argument. So after that we will just write my component. So these three arguments are same for getting dispatch as the second function. So here you will get dispatch as default without even mentioning the map dispatch to props. Now, once we have connected our component in this way, the connect function connects our component. So then our component, my component, will receive props.dispatch. And then we will use this dispatch into our original component. So let us just go and see inside our counter. So you can see these statements: dispatch increment, dispatch decrement, or whatever you have defined. So this is what we are talking about. Here they are receiving props.dispatch, and then we will use it to dispatch actions to the store. You remember we have written the increment and decrement actions. Let me show it to you once. So here we have written increment, decrement, and increment by amount, and we have stated that what are the changes we want. So here we are using to dispatch the actions using dispatch method. Now if we provide map dispatch to props a parameter. So providing a map dispatch to props, why is it needed or how is it going to help me? It allows us to specify which action our component might need to dispatch. So this is being clear. It lets us provide action dispatching function as props. So we can pass a, a parameter inside the map dispatch to props as follows. So you can also write props dispatch, and then you can assign it to increment. So this is one way, but you can also directly do this as props dot increment. So generally we will prefer the second one many of the times, because the second one is more declarative. First, encapsulating the dispatch logic into function makes the implementation more declarative. Dispatching an action and letting the Redux store handle the data flow is how to implement the behavior rather than what it does. So maybe we want to dispatch an action when a button is clicked. So we already have that. So we have added button on click, and inside dispatch we have our increment. So connecting the button directly probably doesn't make sense conceptually, and neither does have the button a reference dispatch. So here the button needs to be aware of dispatch. And if we just remove and just have increment here instead of dispatch, like if I remove whole of this dispatch, let me just, so if I have something like this, so here the button is unaware of the dispatch. So once we have wrapped all our action creators with functions that dispatch the actions, the component is free of the need of dispatch. Therefore, if we define our own map dispatch to props, the connected component will no longer receive dispatch. Second is passing down action dispatching logic to the child component. So if we have any child component, presently we are seeing a simple example, so I will just explain it to you and we will see an example later on. So in addition, we also gain the ability to pass down the action dispatching function to child likely unconnected components. So this allows more components to dispatch actions while keeping them unaware of Redux. So we are not giving the component the awareness of dispatch action. So this is what React Redux's connect does. It, it encapsulates the logic of talking to the Redux store and lets you not worry about it. And this is what you should totally make full of use in your implementation. Now we will be talking about the forms of mapDispatchToProps. So the mapDispatchToProps parameter can be of two forms. While the function form allows more customization, the object form is easy to use. So the first one is function form. Here it will allow us more customization, gains access to dispatch, and optionally own props. So this is the first form. The second form is the object shorthand form. This is more declarative and easier to use. So according to the official page of React Redux, they will recommend using the object form of mapDispatchToProps unless we have some other need to customize dispatching behavior in the same way. Now, what we have to do to define mapDispatchToProps as a function. So defining mapDispatchToProps as a function, it gives us the most flexibility in customizing the functions our components receive and how they dispatch actions. We gain access to dispatch and own props, and we may use this chance to write customized function to be called in our connected components. Talking about the arguments are first is dispatch and the second is own props. This is optional. So own props is optional. So for dispatch, the function will be called with dispatch as the first argument, and we will normally make use of this by returning new function that calls dispatch inside themselves and either pass in a plain action object directly or pass in the result of the action creator. Like here, we are dispatching. So here I will add my dispatch as it was earlier. So inside this dispatch and inside dispatch I have increment. So this is how we are dispatching plain actions. Or you can also have a type here. Directly you can write type and the type will be of increment. Or you can have decrement or you can have reset button. We can also want to forward arguments of our action creators. So like we will create a function on increment and then we can pass on increment inside our dispatch. For example, I will add on increment and inside that I will give so like on increment, and inside that I will give the argument event for E. So that is how you will do it. Now for own props. In our map dispatched function, it is declared as two parameters. It will be called with dispatch as first parameter and props passed to the connected component as the second parameter, and will be re-invoked whenever the connected components receive new props. This means instead of rebinding new props to action dispatchers upon component re-rendering, we may do so when our component's props change. So it will change according to my props. The other important thing is return. So the mapDispatchToProps function should return a plain object. It returns a plain object. Each field in the object will become a separate prop for our own component, and the value should normally be a function that dispatches an action when called. If we use action creators inside dispatch, it is convention to simply name the field key the same name as the action creator. So for example, inside my connect, I have dispatch. Like if I want to change this according to this, then I will just add some const. So here I will add const increment, and this increment will be of the type increment, and then I will add the reference to that. So here is the type. This type is increment, and let us just keep it caps lock on, so all capital. So increment, and then I will reference to this increment here. This is how we are dispatching actions returned by action creators. The return of the map dispatch to props function will be merged into our connected components as props, and we may call them directly to dispatch its action. Now next thing I want you to understand is defining the map dispatch to props function with bind action creators. Wrapping these functions by hand is tedious, so Redux provides a function to simplify that. Bind action creators. What are these? Turns an object whose value are action creators into an object with the same key but with every action creator wrapped into a dispatch call, so they may be invoked directly. So this is what our bind creator action does. It turns an object whose values are action creators into an object with the same key, but with every action creator wrapped into dispatch. So it will wrap each action with dispatch automatically. You do not have to do this manually. Bind action creator will already wrap my action into the dispatch. So half of my work is already done. With every action, creator wrapped into dispatch. Okay, so this function accepts two arguments. The first one is a function, or an object. And the second is the dispatch. The wrapper functions generated by bind action creators will automatically forward all their arguments, so we don't need to do that by hand. So if I want to create some bind action creator, so I will just write, first of all, I will import it. So import bind action creators from Redux. And next I will add it. So here I will import it. Bind action creators from Redux, and we have already created this const. So let's use this one only. So const bound increment, I will call bind action creators. Bind action creators, and I will pass increment, and next I will add dispatch. So this is how we are going to create bound increment, and then we will use it. So inside my mapDispatch function, I will add all the arguments. Let us go ahead and add that. mapDispatchToProps. Inside that I will have dispatch, and then I will pass on the return statement. This return will have bind action creators, and it will have my increment. And next we will add the connect statement. So you can add more bind action creators. I just have one, so I've used one. If I create more, then I will add all inside here, like increment, decrement, reset, and the second one will be my dispatch. So this is the first argument, and the second will be dispatch. Only then this statement is going to work. Now there is another way also of injecting dispatch, which is the manual way of injecting dispatch. If the mapDispatchToProps argument is supplied, the component will no longer receive the default dispatch. We may bring it back by adding it manually to the return of our mapDispatch. So here, inside the return, if we want to add it manually, then we are going to add dispatch, and then with my bind creators, I will add the spread operator. This is how we are going to manually inject dispatch. Now, if we want to define mapDispatchToProps as object, so we have seen that the setup for dispatching Redux action in a React component follows a very similar process. That is, define an action creator, wrap it around the function with dispatch, and then pass the wrapper function as a prop to our component. Simple. So because this is so common, Connect supports an object shorthand form of the mapDispatchToProps argument. So if we pass an object full of action creators inside of a function, Connect will automatically call bind action creators for us. So we do not have to do all this coding right here. You might have seen in our last videos we did not add bind action creators because we were using the object form of mapDispatchToProps. And it is the recommended method. So I will also recommend you to use the second method. So each field of the mapDispatchToProps object is assumed to be an action creator, and our component will no longer receive dispatch as props. So Redux will do that for us automatically. So directly inside our mapDispatchToProps, we will just add increment, decrement, nothing else. We will create a const and then we will just have our arguments inside that. So here I will just add const, and inside mapDispatchToProps, no dispatch, and this is how no dispatch, increment, decrement, I will add all the actions. Now there are some of the simple issues that we like to discuss. So I hope that now mapDispatch to props function is clear to you and you have understood it properly. So do like our video.
So that's it for today's video. I'll see you in the next video.